When Eric Forrester stunned everyone with the announcement of his newly revised will, the room went silent. For decades, Forrester Creations had been ruled with a firm but fair hand by its patriarch, and most assumed Ridge would inherit full control. But Eric had other plans shaped by disappointment, old wounds, and a desire to force the next generation to prove themselves. In a move that sent shockwaves through the family, he split authority between Ridge and Thorne, setting the stage for an all-out war between brothers. Neither was prepared to share power. Neither intended to lose. Ridge was furious. He had sacrificed everything, his marriage, his pride, even his personal peace, for Forrester. He had always been the one Eric trusted most, the creative genius who carried the company on his shoulders during crisis after crisis. Thorne, in Ridge's mind, was a satellite, a side player who had lived too long in Europe and never paid his dues. But Eric's decision changed everything. Thorne was no longer just the younger brother. He was now Ridge's equal in the boardroom. Ridge didn't just see this as betrayal, he saw it as war. Thorne, on the other hand, had been waiting for this moment. After years of being overlooked, pushed to the sidelines, and underestimated, Eric's will was vindication. He returned to Los Angeles with resolve in his eyes and a chip on his shoulder. He wasn't going to let Ridge intimidate him. Not anymore. He brought with him a fresh vision for the company, new distribution strategies, European aesthetics, a digital-first approach, and a burning desire to prove his worth. He didn't want revenge. He wanted respect. But in a family like the Forresters, the line between the two was thin. As Ridge and Thorne circled each other in tense board meetings and icy family dinners, another threat was quietly growing inside the house. Hope Logan. Sweet, ambitious, and strategically underestimated. She'd spent years building her brand within Forrester Creations, carving out a niche with hope for the future. But she wanted more, much more. Hope had grown tired of being treated as a junior partner. She watched as Ridge and Thorne tore into each other over contracts and control, and she saw opportunity. Where they were obsessed with legacy and ego, she saw the future. She started laying the groundwork for a quiet coup. Hope began reaching out to investors quietly, privately. She built alliances among junior board members, interns, and key department heads. She emphasized modern values, sustainability, social media influence, youth-driven fashion. She offered a future that wasn't mired in the past. All the while, she played the role of the peacemaker, supporting Ridge in public, sympathizing with Thorne in private. No one suspected her. That was her greatest strength. Meanwhile, the family began unraveling. The competition between Ridge and Thorne brought long-buried resentments to the surface. At a charity gala, their simmering feud boiled over into a public shouting match. Ridge accused Thorne of being a puppet, riding the coattails of Eric's pity. Thorne shot back, accusing Ridge of being a tyrant, a hypocrite who only valued loyalty when it served him. The cameras caught every second. The press had a field day. In the fallout, old secrets began to resurface. Donna Logan, Eric's ex-wife, hinted to Brooke that there was more to the will than anyone realized. Brooke, caught between her loyalty to Ridge and her concern for Hope, started digging. What she found nearly broke her. Eric had also included a confidential addendum sealed, known only to his attorney, regarding Douglas. The document named Thomas's son as a potential future heir, contingent on who held the most stable position within the company. The implication was clear. Legacy was now tied not just to blood, but to behavior. Hope, already raising Douglas, saw the opening. If she could stabilize her brand, undermine the chaos Ridge and Thorne had caused, and position herself as Douglas's legal guardian and moral compass, she could make a case for full control, not just of her division, but of Forrester Creations itself. She didn't hesitate. She ramped up her efforts, quietly meeting with Eric's lawyer to confirm the addendum's details. The moment it was validated, she started consolidating power. She restructured Hope for the future, pulled in high-profile influencers, and launched an aggressive marketing campaign that doubled revenue in 6 weeks. While Ridge and Thorne bled the company with their ego war, Hope rose. But secrets can't stay buried forever. In the midst of the chaos, a private investigator hired by Thorne unearthed something that shifted everything: Ridge's paternity. It had always been whispered that Ridge might not be Eric's biological son. And now, Thorne had the proof. Blood tests. Old love letters. A confession from Stephanie Forrester's private nurse. Ridge was Massimo Morone's son. Thorne brought it to the boardroom like a bomb. The room fell silent. Ridge was blindsided. All his life, he had believed himself to be the true heir, the chosen son. Suddenly, he wasn't even a Forrester by blood. He exploded at Thorne, at Eric's memory, at the legacy that had defined him. Thorne didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Ridge's credibility was shattered. Hope seized the moment. She called an emergency vote, citing instability in leadership, declining investor confidence, and fractured executive cohesion. Backed by her recent financial wins, her guardianship of Douglas, and her rising popularity in the media, she made her case for interim CEO. The vote passed by a narrow margin. Ridge and Thorne were both removed from decision-making roles pending further review. The fallout was brutal. Ridge withdrew, disappearing into self-imposed exile, questioning everything he thought he knew about identity, family, and loyalty. Thorne tried to regroup, but without Ridge as a target, his momentum faltered. Hope took the reins with clinical precision. She installed a new executive team, brought in outside consultants, and rewrote the company's mission statement. Forrester Creations was no longer just a family business, it was her business. But even as she celebrated her victory, cracks began to form. Steffi, watching from the sidelines, grew increasingly alarmed by Hope's cold strategy. She began questioning whether Hope's vision was really about the company or about control. Liam, torn between his loyalty to Hope and his memories of what Forrester used to be, started pulling away. And Thomas, unstable and possessive of both his son and his legacy, saw Hope's power grab as a betrayal too deep to forgive. What had started as a battle for leadership had turned into something far more dangerous, a family imploding under the weight of secrets, ambition, and betrayal. Forrester Creations had always been built on beauty, but behind the silk and shimmer, a civil war was brewing. One that would not end with votes or contracts, but with broken hearts and ruined legacies. And at the center of it all stood Hope, victorious, powerful, but dangerously alone. Liam Spencer's life has always been entangled in chaos, loves lost and regained, secrets exposed, loyalties tested, but nothing could prepare him for this. The revelation of a terminal brain tumor, inoperable and aggressively progressing, shatters every illusion of control he thought he had. For once, his power as a Spencer, his past as a romantic linchpin between Hope Logan and Steffi Forrester, and even his bond with his children all feel fragile, slipping like sand through his fingers. The man who once stood at the center of every major love triangle in Los Angeles now finds himself facing death not as a plot device, but as a brutal, silent presence consuming him from within. Hope Logan has loved Liam for most of her adult life. Even when her heart wandered, even when trust broke into 1,000 pieces, even when she told herself she'd moved on, part of her still looked at Liam as the one. But lately, that love had cooled, matured, receded into something quieter, something buried beneath exhaustion, betrayal, and disappointment. She had started to see a different future for herself, one that might include Carter Walton, a man who offered stability, passion, and, for once, clarity. Carter didn't belong to a triangle. He didn't bring ghosts of Steffi or years of back and forth. He was a blank page. But nothing remains blank for long in this town. Steffi Forrester Finnegan finds herself burdened with a secret she never wanted to hold. She has always had complicated feelings about Hope. There's jealousy, rivalry, and an uneasy respect, but this time, it's different. Liam's diagnosis has ripped away the luxury of resentment. She learns the truth before anyone else, not by choice but by chance. Liam, shaken by seizures and pain, confides in her, begging her not to tell Hope. He doesn't want pity. He doesn't want a forced reunion or a love born of guilt. He wants to protect her from the impending wreckage. But Steffi, perhaps realizing that withholding the truth will only deepen the eventual wound, tells Hope anyway. The moment Hope learns of Liam's condition, everything changes. The silence between them, once padded by months of emotional withdrawal, is pierced by urgency. She rushes to his side, not to rekindle what they had, but because she can't bear the thought of letting him face death alone. She sees the tremors in his hands, the flickers of confusion behind his eyes, the unbearable weight of knowing there's no future. And in that moment, her heart cracks open. She still loves him. She never stopped. Their reunion is not a cliché. It is not romantic in the traditional sense. It's painful. It's honest. Hope confesses that she left emotionally long before the illness took hold, but that doesn't change what he means to her. She wants to be there, to help him fight, even if the odds are hopeless. And Liam, weakened but deeply moved, accepts her presence, not because he expects forgiveness or a fairy tale ending, but because for once he simply wants peace. But nothing in this world stays simple for long. Carter Walton, having carefully built a connection with Hope, overhears a private exchange between her and Liam. He hears just enough to believe the worst, that Hope has reignited her feelings for her ex-husband. He doesn't confront her. Instead, he recoils, hurt and confused. And into that emotional vacuum steps Daphne Rose. Daphne arrived in Los Angeles under murky intentions. Steffi orchestrated her presence in part to complicate Carter's relationship with Hope, though not even she knew how quickly Daphne would attach herself to him. Daphne is beautiful, intelligent, and carefully calculating her every move. She comforts Carter, listens to his frustrations, and begins to fill the emotional void. Carter, wounded and vulnerable, begins to lean into her, first for distraction, then for solace. What Carter doesn't know is that Daphne's presence in his life is far from accidental. Zend Forrester, in a careless conversation, lets slip to Katie Logan the truth behind Daphne's arrival, that Steffi had hoped to use her to destabilize Hope and Carter's growing bond. Katie, always protective of her niece and suspicious of the Forrester manipulations, confronts Daphne directly. Daphne, cornered, tries to deny it at first, but eventually confesses, not to guilt, but to ambition. She came to LA to rise, and Carter was her ticket. Whether she's developed real feelings is unclear even to her. Meanwhile, Liam's condition deteriorates. The pain intensifies. The seizures become more frequent. The doctors confirm that the tumor is growing. Options are running out. A clinical trial in Europe offers a sliver of hope, but it would mean leaving his children behind, perhaps dying alone on another continent. Hope urges him to go. She promises to bring the kids to him, to be by his side every step of the way. Her voice cracks when she says it, because she knows the unspoken truth. If he leaves, he may never return. In the days that follow, Hope and Liam begin to piece together a fragile piece. They share memories, laughter, grief. He opens up in a way he never did before, stripped of pride and bravado. She tells him that while they may never be what they once were, she will always love him. Not out of obligation, but because he is part of her soul. Liam, in turn, apologizes for every time he made her feel like she was competing with someone else. He tells her that in the end, it's her face he wants to see. It's her voice he wants to hear last. But time is relentless. The news of Liam's illness begins to leak. The media catches wind of it. Paparazzi begins stalking the Spencer estate. Bill Spencer, devastated but trying to remain strong, begins legal maneuvers to ensure his grandchildren are cared for in the event of Liam's passing. Wyatt, reeling from the news, tries to step up, but his grief turns to rage. He lashes out at Hope, blaming her for waiting too long to come back, for hesitating, for not loving Liam enough. She doesn't defend herself. She simply walks away, tears streaking her cheeks. Carter, still spiraling, proposes to Daphne in a reckless move. Trying to anchor himself in something, anything. Daphne says yes, stunned but delighted. But later, she begins to wonder if she's merely a placeholder. When Carter stares out the window, silent and numb, she realizes he may not be thinking about their future at all. And then, the unexpected happens. Hope receives a call in the middle of the night. Liam has collapsed again, this time not from a seizure, but from something worse. A hemorrhage. They rush him into emergency care, but the prognosis is grim. The doctors say he may not make it through the night. Hope holds his hand in the dark, whispering stories from their past, refusing to let go. And then, against all odds, Liam opens his eyes. His voice is faint, but it's there. He asks her to take care of the children, to live without regret, to love again, fully. She tells him not to speak that way, but the tears betray her fear. Liam survives the night, but just barely. The doctors say it's a miracle, but miracles don't come without cost. He's no longer the same. His mobility is limited. His memory flickers. He may never recover fully. In the weeks that follow, Hope stands by him quiet, steady, loyal. Carter calls off the engagement. Daphne leaves LA, exposed and alone. Steffi wrestles with guilt, wondering if any of this could have been prevented. And Bill? Bill begins to plan something extraordinary. A foundation in Liam's name, focused on neurological research, determined that no other family should face this nightmare unprepared. But the question still hangs. What comes next? Will Hope and Liam rebuild something new from the ashes of what they were? Or is this the final chapter of their story, closed not with rage or betrayal, but with love tempered by time and tragedy? Will Carter wait in the wings, watching the woman he once believed would be his future? The story continues. The stakes are higher than ever. And in the world of the bold and the beautiful, nothing is ever truly final, except perhaps the depth of the love that binds these characters together, even as fate threatens to pull them apart.